Just hide down, she said. She didn't. But the next, here you are.
You're ready.
Okay, we're live. Okay, it's welcome to the March 23rd meeting. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, public comments today?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of REACH to present the April Employee of the Month. They were nominated, I think, 3 times. So I kind of have a little paraphrase I took out of the 3 of them to describe this person and the nominations. So this person is an amazing supervisor. He works so hard every day to make all of us, to make sure all of us are taken care of. Jake works long hours without ever complaining. The health department has not run as smooth as it has with Jake being supervisor since I started working at the RCHD a little over a year ago. Jake is surrounded by women all day and it doesn't seem to bother him. He is greatly appreciated and the health department would not be the same without him. He has been instrumental in setting up communications with community partners, vendors to create platforms for easier documentation and flow for mass clinics. He has been a supportive leader, encouraging staff to expand knowledge and scope to assist patients in new ways, such as RNs to attend SANE, SART trainings. As healthcare is rapidly changing, Jacob thinks it's crucial keeping up with changing policies to reflect current and best practice, ensuring the safest care for our staff and most importantly, our patients. So I want to present Jacob Clark for April Employee of the Month. I have a class for you, and I will be giving you 2 movie tickets that I didn't get done yet. You have an awesome new parking spot.
Hopefully not over here because I won't work for him.
Right on in.
Okay, and here we go. 1, 2, 3. Take one more to be safe. 1, 2, 3. Big smiles. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
No, I just got to know how in the world do we fit everybody in?
Okay, is there any more public comment? That's one. Okay. Sure, okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elizabeth Ward, Human Resources Director. I have a thank you note directed to you from one of our employees that was delivered actually 2 weeks ago, but I was out at the meeting. So, Commissioners Folkley, Ford, and McKinley, during last week's United Way campaign drawing, I won the prize for 8 hours of administrative leave, and I am so thankful for the extra time off and look forward to spending the day with my family. I truly appreciate your dedication to helping employees of Riley County with their work-life balance. I didn't write it. Thank you for everything. Sincerely, Shannon Sterling. Wanted to share that.
Is there any other public comment? Okay.
I really just have some questions. more
Okay,
than
you state your
anything.
name and works.
And it's about the appraisal process that's going on.
Can you state your name,
State your
please?
name,
Larry
please.
Limbacher.
Oh, okay.
And has the process changed in some way over the last year? I mean, algorithms or how you calculate? I mean, I have a comment because I've scheduled my appeals upstairs. But the reason I ask that is because I have a property which is identical to about 50 other properties in a townhome situation, not one. The appraisal value is 10,000 more than any sold. Even the souls this year. It's still 10,000 more. I'm wondering, now how does that happen? I mean, where is the comp process involved in this? And why isn't that taken into consideration more in the appeals process? I mean, in the appraisal process. Whereas if I went and got a actual appraisal for that property, I feel relatively sure that they would have to honor that up there. And if you're a certified appraiser, you cannot take an estimated algorithm that shows the projection cost of a property, which hasn't even sold. Say nothing, no comp sold for 8 months, and you take a formula that calculates the general rise in prices. And appraiser can't do that. If I wanted to sell that property, they can only go off, as licensed appraiser can only go off what has been sold. But evidently, you can't, you don't. And I'm wondering, I've never experienced that. I know we have a rise in prices, and so it's more obvious this year than before. But I've never experienced this great increase based on what we think it could be if it was sold today. And somehow that just doesn't seem right. I'm not just concerned about me, I'm concerned about the elderly people on fixed incomes who's haven't done a thing to their house in 40 years, and they get caught up in this thing. I don't know. I don't know what to say, guys. You guys got any opinions on that? I'd like to hear.
I've actually asked the question if there's not other variables in that process that need to be weighed a little bit more heavily than just current market value, because as we've learned over the last couple of years, and I think you've been in real estate for quite some time, so you understand this, that when people start panic buying, obviously that changes everything at once, and it doesn't give you an accurate depiction of what it is in real time. Those changes will probably have to come from the state and may come from the state just due to what's happening. But I think there has to be some other things weighed in the process to just keep it balanced moving forward.
Yeah, and most people don't appeal. Most people don't appeal. And if they would probably 50% of them would probably have some adjustment. So I think comps do need to be weighed heavily, more heavy than what they have been in the past. And I don't know how to change that. But I just want to bring it to your attention. That's all.
Well, you're
places-
going to the appeal process, right?
I have, yeah. And that's the argument I got. Well, even though you have comps that say your value should be 10,000 less, even though I provided sale information for this year that's 10,000 less.
Mhm.
It just didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So I can't figure this out, but
Yeah, they're revamping, the office is changing a lot, and they're going through a lot of processes and, based on market values. And I myself am going through an appeal process as well. But I found a discrepancy in square footage, and so we're looking at that. So that's
these
important.
were all identical, 50 of them. All identical. Of course, now
You've gone beyond 3 minutes, so I'm just.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, I'm not a pop, no,
Well, that's good. I'm
just wanted to let you know.
Yeah,
Just want to let you know.
that's fine. I've said what I need to say, so thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comment? Oh. Okay. No public, no other, Craig, or do you have public comment?
No, he just have.
Oh,
Okay, then we'll go to commission comments. Commissioner McKinley?
It's been a quiet week so far. It was basically a quiet week. I took some time. I was catching up on emails and reviewing our meeting stuff. Then I had a call yesterday from KSNT, wanted to record something on the dangerous dog ordinance that we're working on. They came out to the house, recorded about 10 minutes of questions and comments. And then on the broadcast, I was there for 5 seconds. Oh, but then last night's report was straightforward and mostly correct. And then this morning had someone else doing it. It was a definite spin to it, but you know, it's what it is. And that's still working on some home remodeling, and finally found an electrician and plumber to come out and do the work. They've all been busy, and finally finding someone had some time to get out and get some stuff completed. Other than that, just mentally ready for the game tonight. Make sure I got the right shirt on, make sure I've got the right clean shirt to wear for the game tonight. That's about all I had.
Okay, Commissioner Ford?
Yeah, just maybe throwing a couple of caveats to Larry's comments there. I had a pretty lively conversation with the individual last night who's on fixed income. So is his wife, and they're, let's say, very, very concerned. Monday afternoon, had the March meeting of the Raleigh County Law Board. It's Manhattan City Hall. Amongst the items of discussion were the approval of the consent agenda, which included all the usual monthly reports and expenditures, as well as the minutes from the February meeting. Some of the items from the general agenda included several public and board member comments, updates from the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 17, the Community Advisory Board. We had a proclamation for the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week, another one of those long ones. That's actually in April, but that'll happen before we meet, so we went ahead and did that. We had 2 officer promotions and pennings, a very robust discussion on this year's Fake Patty's Day. And lastly, the approval of both the audit engagement letter to start the audit process from last year's budget and information technology reserve fund expenditure. Also Monday afternoon, as it kind of worked out, worked with Clancy Holman and Vivian on the getting out the local emergency declaration for the fire over across the south. That allowed us to get some airdrop in there, and there's several cool shots and videos and stuff of that too, if you want to check that out online to see how that actually works and goes into place. Did want to say thanks to everyone who helped contain not only that fire, but the 3 that I think we've had before now up in random places here in the county. I'm looking at the calendar and I'm thinking it's March, and I'm thinking not only is it that time of the year, but it's really early that time of the year. I don't know how much rain we got over the last couple of days. Hopefully that puts things to rest for a little while, but very thankful no structures were damaged, nor were there any loss of life or injury due to any of the recent fires. And thank you for everybody who went out and did that, including the ones that we called in from other areas. Tuesday, attended the monthly board of directors meeting with the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Got an update on both financial and membership accounts through February 28th. Got a presentation from Darren Solden, economic development director, on the entrepreneurial request. Basically, it was the same thing he went through with us when he was here for his update. They presented that to the Manhattan City Commission Tuesday night. I didn't get a chance to watch, so I don't know how that worked out, or maybe it's just still a process. Also got an update on the Midtown Aggieville project from Back Nine Development. Interesting. Staff updated us on other program and activities as well. Tuesday evening, I also attended the Riley County Farm Bureau Association board meeting. Took some time to update them on what's going on here in Riley County, including Senate Bill 162, Nuisance Abatement Act. Explained to them that ag and agritourism properties are exempt from that. Kind of went through the dialogue and the process and hopefully the timeline on that going into next year. May have to update them again. We'll see. Discussion, of course, on the Raleigh County Fairgrounds and our recent conversation on the township unit structure and what that may look like going forward. A really good dialogue. There was a lot of good questions. Certainly appreciated the time they allotted me to discuss all of that. I also wanted to say congratulations to the K-State women's team for defeating Wyoming and make it to the NIT Super 16. They don't call it Sweet 16, I guess.
Well, I think Insula has it copyrighted.
See, I was wondering about that. Actually, that would kind of make sense. Okay.
And also Final Four. They've got-
Yeah, that one I did know because you could see it down there when they do the logos and stuff for it. Yeah. Yeah, so up next is Washington, I guess, in Seattle. So good luck to them. Looking forward to tonight's game against Michigan State in the Sweet 16 side. Wanted to also just lastly, and I'll try to be quick on this, mention something that just kind of occurred to me after Tuesday's meeting with the chamber. And though I don't think it's going to make anybody here feel any better necessarily, I think maybe it's important just to point out that we're not alone in some of the work and efforts that's going on. I mentioned the Midtown project. Everything that's been done so far is actually paid for out of dollars that are there. There's still some utility work. There's still some alleyway work that's going to happen regardless. The goal and the hope is to find other investors and other people and get them on board. But there's just so many different things going on. The banking situation, inflation, other speculative office is being built, I guess I'll say. And just the increase in cost, that was supposed to be a $40 to $42 million project, and it's up around 50 million now. So MATC, if you remember, I had a discussion with the president and several members there a few weeks ago. They're in phase one of their project of putting the new facility in there on the east side. If you're driving by the campus over there, don't be alarmed. Everything that's going into there is what's sitting on the southwest corner right now. They're not having any plans on that, but their cost has shot up almost $1.5 million just since November. So they're struggling to come up with that too. Scorpions or Scorpius. That's the first time I've heard that word. And maybe they're changing the name. I didn't go through a long dialogue on that, but I heard that. They're kind of reevaluating their plans over there as well and trying to maybe go to more of a phased approach into that project instead of just building it all at once. And I'll be honest with you, I think that's actually the proper way to go. It gives everybody here in the region and just everybody in general an opportunity to catch up with them, because there's a lot of things we're missing out of the equation currently, including a trained workforce, housing, all the other variables that go into that. So long term, that one may work out, but point to take from that is everybody's struggling right now, and it's not the best time to be building large and special projects. But even though I think the region is ripe for all of this, it's going to be a challenge moving forward, and everybody's going to have to probably reevaluate and adjust accordingly. So just wanted to throw that out there just for good measure this morning. And that's all I've got.
Okay, my comments. Monday afternoon, I took my daughter to the KCI airport for a trip back to Virginia. As I was taking the airport exit, I received a call from Counselor Holman about the emergency fire order. No way I could get back and sign it. So that I went to Commissioner Ford to sign. And as I was coming back, I saw the burned areas that had started in the median, and there was still a fire smoldering even late in the afternoon. But I checked with Russell Stuckey and got an update on it. So the airport was easier to access on Monday, but they still don't have very clear signage. Like you come out of the cell phone light and you don't know which way to go to get to the terminal or exit the terminal. It's crazy. But hopefully they'll get it corrected soon so they can get caught up with it. Then Tuesday, I attended a Zoom meeting of the Board of Heartland Works. The main topic was to hear the audit report for 2022. It was quite a lengthy discussion of all the assets and all the grants and that kind of thing that funds the group. But the board is in good financial shape and the board approved the report. That afternoon, I met with the county appraiser and person on several issues. Their office is super busy with property value appeals. So, you know, a lot of people are calling in and they're just like crazy busy up there. So, you know, hopefully we'll get through all this soon and we'll come up with values. So. Let's see, Wednesday afternoon, I attended a very lengthy meeting at my church concerning the weekly meals being provided in conjunction with Common Table. They had been to the greater Manhattan Community Foundation on Monday night, which I wasn't able to go to, and received an award for all the work in the team. So we had quite an extensive discussion about that and filling volunteer positions, which I think everybody's working on. Then that evening, last night, I attended bell practice and Latin services and got home a little late, but I think it's fine. So that's it for me. So, go on to the business meeting.
First item is action on the 2023 asphalt overlay program bid recommendation.
Anything you should be aware of? Pretty standard.
Yeah, pretty standard. We're
Okay.
gonna go with alternate one with the 3 extra roads in it.
Okay.
Between the two, we took out a few roads, but this right at budget amount with a little bit of sales tax.
Finish it out.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. Go ahead and make a motion to approve the bid for alternate one from Schilling Construction in the amount of $1,280,252 even.
No second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the alternate bid number 1 for the overlay program. All in favor? Aye.
Next item is approve payroll and accounts payable.
Make a motion to approve payroll and accounts payable.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve accounts payable and payroll. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Directions.
Next item is to review the minutes from the March 20th board meeting.
Any corrections or additions?
I don't have anything. No, okay. I go and make a motion to approve the minutes as written from the March 20th, 2023 meeting of the Riley County Commission.
Well, second.
So moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the Board of Raleigh County Commissioners from March 20th, 23 as written. All in favor?
Aye.
Tentative agendas.
Still pretty tentative. Yep, it will.
The press conference topics.
No. Good to go.
And we will, next Thursday. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is.
Where'd this month go?
I don't know. I'll take that.
Yeah, well, I've got mine done. I'm not sending the check.
Well, I haven't done mine, I just keep putting it off. So, what's their name?
Very.
Barry.
Good signage to all the roads. Reasonable. He kind of scared us and said the people a bit more. Because all the different roads that move from one to the other. Worked out with. They don't do what I'm going to do. If we can get them, we're better off. Maybe more.
I missed one.
The next one should be on the. Yeah, that worked out well. I was better. I was pleased with the. More. Easy. Yeah. So, yeah. That's how I. We should get that, those options, that's based on. You know, they get those, you use based on 150 of them. Still a bunch of them. 15. So.
Would you like to sign these since
Oh,
you're
sure.
here? You want me to do it later?
I'll do it. Yeah, great.
Morning.
Hi, Barry.
Yeah, we will. You won't hard to me because you may. So. Yeah, make it competitive. When it comes to maybe do get ahead of that's then or in the holiday, yeah, for sure. Very much.
Are you?
Good, yep.
Good.
Missing all the wall work on.
Hmm. What?
You're missing all the wall work on.
I bet. Sounds like it.
Well, that's the adjective I would use, but we'll go with it.
I'm trying to be positive.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Okay, it's not. When you're ready.
Oh, okay, sorry. I was just going to come back and report to the commission that CJ Rig has started in our office on March 6th. We are starting to already work through a lot of the cases that were sitting on our desk that had not been filed and reviewed. And so we're going to continue that process of getting those cases reviewed, getting them filed. I believe people deserve, to know where their cases are. Victims, these are not, as I said before, these are not violent crimes, but they are nonetheless, they're crimes, and anybody's a victim of whatever crimes, that's what they're concerned about. So we're trying to get through those. We will continue to go through those. This, I think we'll continue to try cases at, probably as we've had our discussions. It's not cheap to try cases, but we do believe that we're going to have to continue to try cases. We've tried mediation, and frankly, it has not, with the sentences we've received, have not been to our liking or satisfactory, in our opinion. We have an obligation, and that obligation is to do the best we can to keep this public safe. We can't prevent all crimes, but what we can do is we can work to try to reduce recidivism by prosecuting violent offenders and those who continue to commit crimes. And we just feel that right now we need to continue to push forward and to try cases. And like I said, we tried some mediation, which was supposed to be a little bit, hopefully efficiently resolve some cases, but they have not worked out to our satisfaction. So I'm not saying we won't do any mediation, but we're, probably won't be too involved in that process going forward. Things are, we're fully staffed. A year ago, we were in a process of filling several different positions. We remain fully staffed. I think things are going well as they can go from our standpoint, but certainly appreciate this commission's help and everything that you've done to give us the support we need to, I think, do our job to the best of carry out our duties to the best of our abilities. Working on a project, and I told Clancy that I was going through all the statutes on all the duties and obligations and things like that, and I would share that with Clancy to kind of review it. But I'm working on that process as well. That kind of lays out statutorily all the obligations and duties of all the elected officials. So I'll get that to Clancy at some point. I thought it was going to be a 1 or 2 week project, but it's taken me a lot longer. So,
Yeah, surprise.
So, but I'll get that at some point, and we'll get that to the commission.
Okay, any questions?
I was gonna say, thank for your work and efforts on helping us draft that RFP for engineering services. His insights were very valuable.
Appreciate it. Glad to help out and do what we can to help you as you've helped me. So that's what this is all about, in my opinion. So
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. And if you have any questions on that in that regard as well, please don't hesitate to reach out.
We'll do.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
You see the report on minutes. That's a dangerous dog.
No, they had called me, supposedly tried to reach me and couldn't get through to me, and then I finally, I got back to him, the guy, and then he said, well, I turned it over to somebody else, and so I didn't know what it
Because Gabriel was
was.
supposed to do it, and then they called me and said, oh, he's not gonna make it, you got a different call, well, she said something about breaking news. I thought, oh, I wonder what that is.
Yeah.
Then his report of the news last night was about the Play Center is rebuilding, tearing down the old stadium and building a new one for the high school. I thought, okay, that wasn't breaking news, but Al came out and asked all kinds of questions about stuff and didn't use any.
Well, and when.
And then her report was mostly right, but then she said, oh yeah, we're gonna be working on this, and you know, they're gonna be finalizing it at today's meeting or tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah.
They reached out to me too, and I
Yeah,
told
they-
him I wasn't gonna be able to be free yesterday, but I said. You might want to wait to do that story because
Yeah.
we're having a meeting on the topic with the city and everybody at 4 p.m. and. Tomorrow, that was yesterday, just sort of tracking, but yeah, so I don't know if they're gonna be there.
You know, I'm not in Manhattan, I'm in Riley, and I said, I'm not driving into Manhattan.
No.
They
So
said,
they
"Oh, we'll
want-
come out there. Okay.
Tell them, well, if you're gonna be there at 4, if you need something from me, we can do it then before or after the meeting, but it didn't make any sense to.
That was apparently the person that guy referred me to didn't call me, so, and I had told him that, we hadn't made any decisions on it, we're still going through the process, and
And that's what I said,
Yeah.
you know,
it doesn't really. But that's
then this
amazing
morning-
they came out there.
yeah, came out there and worked me there and. See, reports they were gonna do it, and then something about because the new ordinance will go into effect May 1st.
Really,
Yeah,
that's good to know.
and she said a committee, a committee, a citizens committee came together. And formed a committee to bring this to us.
Really,
And I said, we formed a committee, and I told her, we formed this committee, had people involved. And then this morning's report, she's the lady, it was different, whoever does the morning report there said. New restrictions will cause increased cost to people with certain dogs.
Well, I mean, technically, that's
And
not wrong.
it is true, but that wasn't the focus of the story. And said, oh yeah, people with dangerous dogs are gonna be required to put up fences like this, and this, and this, and that. And I mentioned that, yeah, but there's some restrictions.
sure. Well,
And I said, the one thing that you put on clip was, there's been controversy when they name specific breeds, it's not breed specific, this is gonna be
mhm.
behavior related.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to approach it. And that's the only part that. It was, and I don't know why they decided that was
It's very premature, I
a
think.
news item right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I thought he was, when he called it, I thought it was gonna be something like critical, some real news where like a fire or,
Valuations.
Evaluation,
That's what I thought.
That's what I thought, and then he said, animal control, I'm like, what? It's, we haven't finalized.
It does kind of make, if you look at the next door threads, I guess the conversation, the dialogue makes sense because 90% of it deals with pets. So. It's a relevant topic, I suppose.
Well, it is, and.
Relevant topic, right? Slow news day, I guess. They're trying to find something.
Not really not, but
Well, there was a law board that could report on and all sorts of things.
yeah, there really wasn't much there.
Mhm.
Like if you wanted to rehash fake Patty's Day from almost 3 weeks ago
Yeah.
now.
For the, how many year in a row.
I don't know how you fix it.
You don't.
Well.
Kids are gonna be kids.
Well, when their initial fix was to shut down Aggieville, and went, okay, and so it spread it all over the town, made it worse.
Yeah.
I think the interesting dynamic there is. Last 2 years, it's been up in the kind of Raton and North Manhattan
Yeah. It's
area.
been in a
What happens when those kids, they will move on,
Sure.
for better or for worse, they will move on.
Go to a different
And
neighborhood.
it'll be a different neighborhood, somebody will pick up the mantle and roll with it, so, yeah.
I don't know what you do about it. I really don't
You don't,
enforce.
you try to make sure it's as safe as possible, you try to make sure that. Nobody gets hurt, nobody dies, and that's the best you can do with it. I mean, I don't know, of course, I was there that day with our CPD walking around and whatnot, and I don't know, I'm old enough to remember the second Aggieville riot in the fall of '87. I was here and part of the crowd in 1998 for the Nebraska game, and those two would be, in my opinion, far worse than any of the last couple of years. So, I don't know. I can understand some of the property owners in and around the area that had some damages or couldn't get out or couldn't get back in. In fact, we stopped at one house where some random truck from Texas just parked in their driveway, blocked both of their cars in, they had to go to work. So, I can understand those, and those things you can probably, maybe with a little bit of education and work, can work through a little bit, but
Well, it's kind of like,
everybody thinks you can put an ordinance and a resolution in place and they're just gonna disperse and it's just gonna go away, and if anything, that'll make it worse. That'll make it more viable, that'll make it more intriguing.
hopefully we can get back to regular St. Patty's Day.
Yeah.
Parade and all that. Those students usually not here. I don't know. And when my daughter was in college, she participated in that. It was all in Aggieville, didn't spread to
Yeah.
properties outside. I went down and picked up kids all day long. Took them home.
Well, I just thought it was kind of interesting, we midst of that. There was a 19-year-old kid who was here from Tennessee, and he kind of explained how he ended up here with friends and stuff, and he gets picked up for an MIP. I don't know why he was walking around the street to begin with, but anyway, his major concern wasn't the fact that he was gonna be cited and had to go to jail and all that. He just didn't want the ticket to get sent to his parents' address. And in a way, I kind of had respect for that. I'm like, okay, well, don't make them have to deal with it on your own. That's the responsible thing to do.
Yeah, but when you're under 18, they find out.
It's not under 18, it's under.
Or
Under 21, yeah.
Under 21.
That's all right. You can just do a file.
I didn't know how much rain they got. No, my rain gauge said a half an inch.
Oh, really?
And I'm trying to remember if I emptied it out from the last
Yeah.
rain or not, so I'm gonna say that here in the last couple week or so, we've got a half an inch of rain,
Yeah.
and just leave it at that. I went to pull it up and I took about half the ground with it. I'm gonna have to replant it someplace else.
It's always so shocking these days to get up and find that it's rained.
Yeah,
Look, everything's wet. What happened?
It's kind of drizzly.
well, I couldn't tell if it was just heavy fog,
It had a little drizzle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but then I started noticing things were kind of wet and you could see it, and I thought, okay, that's good. That's good. Much obliged. I guess baseball season starts in a week. I don't know if I can roll with the Royals spring training record thus far.
I haven't seen it, I guess that.
No, they've done well in spring training, but it's spring training, so.
Yeah. That's what I've heard, that they are, I remember last year that the whatever those things that pitch, the time that it's pitched now, that
Yeah.
trying to speed it up, which I guess last year they had it in their minor leagues.
They did.
And tried it out, they're doing it, they're
It's,
making it, they're talking about some adjustments they're making
Mm-hmm.
to the fact that if the catcher was the last batter or was out on base, you can't expect him to be out there.
yeah,
I remember when the kids were younger playing ball, the catchers, as soon as they came off the field and started, whether they were out, wrapping all that, when you
Oh,
said you
yeah.
played catch, getting all that
Yep.
stuff hooked up and ready to go.
in my time, it was a lot tougher than it is now, because you really had to snap and unsnap and, yeah. Now you've got kind of the helmets that pull away. That was a two-peat process. You had to put the helmet on and put the thing on and snap it into place. Yeah,
All that just to put on the tools of ignorance.
I know. All that is to protect yourself from injury, which didn't really work.
I can say that because my youngest son was a
Yeah.
long time catching.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like if you've ever been a prosecutor, you can call law enforcement officers, most of the cops.
Yeah.
Can't do that. Yeah, around them or something.
I'm amazed at guys like Molina and Perez and even Benito Santiago that played for like 20 years behind the plate. I just, how do you do that?
yeah, I didn't stand up after being about down there for 20 years.
Okay, Clancy.
Morning, Commissioner. Clancy Holman, the Raleigh County Councilor. I want to update you on a few things. As Commissioner Ford mentioned earlier, he talked about the local emergency declaration that was in place. Again, the importance of those for anybody that's listening or watching. The board's of course already aware of. That declaration needs to be in place under state law to activate the ability of any county to later on potentially get reimbursed for some of those emergency response costs. And in this case, that was important because they were using an aircraft. That bill could be conceivably pretty high, and unfortunately may not be the last time they're needed. As Commissioner Ford indicated, this was pretty early for that. And it's kind of matches, I think, what some of the emergency management folks have been talking about, that it's not as green as it should be. Yeah, so see where it goes. But because that was in place under the state law, it's in place I appreciate Commissioner Ford making himself available to sign off on that. I appreciate the chairwoman understanding that had to be the next person up. There's any great honor in signing off on one of these. But one of the weird things about this one is I've told anybody who will listen even briefly is it happened during working hours. I'm not used to that. I don't think I've ever done this between 8 and 5 on a weekday. So everybody was available. I didn't have the excuse. My computer was frozen and nobody could fix it, or the copier wasn't working, and it was great.
Not that you would use that excuse. Anyway.
Not that I would use it. I would just grouse about it. I just complain about it. Then change it. And work through those things, but it was nice it was nice just for once to do it during that. So I encourage emergency management to schedule these in the future to make them.
Actually, you might want to ask Mother Nature to help you schedule those.
Okay,
I hate to
if you think they're not in charge, okay. I'll try that. But because that's in place under state law, it lasts for 7 days. This one will expire at 12:01 Monday morning. I've already talked with Russell just because you want to make sure you don't have any gaps in that coverage of the order on the off chance they need to respond to something. And there could always be one done after midnight on Monday morning if it needed to be. And once again, have the chair or chairwoman or whoever's available sign.
Just a quick question on that.
Sure.
You know, that one is only attached to the current event that happened on Monday. So let's say we have something else happen over the weekend. That emergency declaration wouldn't attach to the current scenario. You'd have to do a separate one.
We do it as a matter of course, just
Right.
as good form. And we've done that in the past.
Right.
And it really, a lot of times it hasn't been a problem because normally in the past, when that's happened, particularly on fires, they're so far distant that you can't claim it was part of the previous one. And I don't, would the state ever in those circumstances say they weren't going to reimburse because that you didn't have an order in place, you had the old one that didn't cover this. I don't see that happening unless there's a real economic reason to do it. I don't know. So, but just as a matter of course, you raise a good point. And we normally just do, in the past, we've done another one. And then we identify the starting point to extend in the general nature of what we know from emergency management about starting point. It's a good question, but that's how we handle it, because we don't want those kind of gaps, just out of caution. Do want to point out a couple of things here. I'm trying to read some of my handwriting. It's not great. We've been working at the staff level on that one particular legislative item. Senate Concurrent Resolution 1610, the one that puts in a freeze on property valuations for no more than 3%. I've been working with Vivian and with Anna, our county appraiser, Vivian, our PIO, We've struggled a little bit on the data just because we want to make sure there's plenty of data. There's almost too much in support of why this is a bad idea, but we want to pare this down to where it's something that's readable and it's easy to explain and easy to answer questions on. So as we've talked it through, we at first were kind of zeroed in a couple of meetings. Okay, well, let's get this done before the hearing that was going to be held. And I assume it was, I think, tracked it. But then my instinct from the beginning is this is one that may even be more important than some of the testimony that the legislature has seen on property tax issues. They haven't shown real enthusiasm, quite frankly, for listening, in my view, to the county position on these things, not just us, but other counties. Because it doesn't really live for the legislature. They get almost none of their operating income from property tax. If we were doing something to income tax, state income tax, we would get their attention, but when it doesn't affect their pocketbook, I think that's one reason why the state's pocketbook, I think that's one reason why it's hard to get them to understand why some of these great ideas are coming into to solve perceived property tax problem questions are not workable, or what the unintended consequences be. This kind of freeze, as we've said before, on other types of freeze legislation, when it's popped up over the years, and it comes back from time to time. It's not out there every session, but from time to time it comes up. One of the primary reasons it's a bad idea, and it applies to this one, is that long term, it's evident. If you lock in values, you're going to end up property tax values, any community, any area you pick, any city, you're going to have areas where the property values are lower because of the condition of homes, even identical homes in another area where they're growing, the new homes. And what you end up with long term is that lower area is going to be paying more and more and more of the entire property tax burden, because the boom in the other area, they're not having to pay for the increased sale, the marketability of homes, from brand new homes that are identical. Nobody's changing anything over here in the lower area, but they're getting stuck with market value, and the people over here are being exempted from market value by virtue of what's going on in the market, and an artificial reduction in what the value of that property is. And that's a recipe across the state for statewide reappraisal. There's just no other way it ends, unless the legislature pulls back or doesn't do it, and it doesn't continue with it, so, or doesn't implement it. But any kind of freeze, when you hear those kind of things, that's going to be the case if the market continues to work as the market has always done, one way or the other. And so it's been interesting, but we thought that, talking among ourselves, Vivian and Anna and I, it's more important we get this very entirely correct, entirely defensible and accurate and readable than trying to beat what the legislature does. I think everybody that you hear from, this is going to get out there in one way, shape, or form. Maybe not this one, but their enthusiasm for doing something, a lot of people are saying who are there routinely, they're going to do something, they being the legislature. And this is an easy one to do if you don't pay attention to what the actual facts are. And we think a public release, a good press release on this, that has good logical information, that's easy to point to examples and defend, goes a long way towards encouraging the public to, if they think that's an okay result, then go ahead, don't do anything. If you think there's some problems with this, then probably a good idea to contact your legislature and let them, legislator and let them know. So that's kind of where we're headed. I wanted to tell you what's driving it. I'm hoping we'll get something in place. It's probably now going to be, it may be the first of next week before something goes out, but that's why there's almost too much data from on the appraisal side to what do you choose and what's a good example, what's going to make this live for people as to why the county's taking a position against this. So I'll let you know where it's at. Do want to remind you that our virtual follow-up legislative conference in if I insist that you use an acronym for that, I may be approaching North Central Kansas region. So it's difficult in saying, but it is going to be virtual. It's going to be on April 10th. The date the board indicated was your preference, 10:30 to 11:30 during a regular meeting. And only an hour. I am going to, with the board's permission, cut off speeches. Or I want to announce at the beginning of it, with your permission, that here's how much time we've got. So if all of you want to talk, you're going to get about 5-10 minutes max. And then I'm going to be saying we need to really give everybody a chance to tell us what they want to tell us. So,
We're gonna have some kind of brunch or something, aren't we? On
a virtual brunch.
the.
Yeah. Oh, it's
I
gonna
walked
be
right into
extravagant.
that one. I walked right into that.
They can click on everything from pheasant to, all kinds of exotic.
That's
dishes.
gonna be nice.
Oh, it's gonna be great. I'm really tempted to put something out there like that. See what kind of reaction we get from the delegation, but probably not a good idea. During next Monday's intergovernmental luncheon, I'm on the agenda to just give a legislative update. And I'll try and focus on those items that have widespread impact to all the stakeholders there potentially, and talk about it a little bit. I'm going to need to leave that meeting before 1. I'm early on the agenda. But so you know, I've got to take off before 1 o'clock to get back here for another item in a matter of pending litigation. I'm going to sit in on the deposition. Next week, you will be seeing from me, should probably on Thursday, it's not going to be Monday, it's going to be Thursday. You'll see the next opioid settlement document. Now this is on a new group of businesses that have settled to the tune of several $billion claims regarding the opioid matter nationally. And because these 3 entities have settled, one of them's Walgreens, one of them, I want to get it right. Or I misidentified somebody. One of them is Walgreens, one's CVS, the other's Walmart. And they all have settled claims in there and are participating to the tune of several $1 billion. Riley can't, and all local governments across the country are getting pieces of this, so we'll get our piece. But you'll have some paperwork to sign over again with a car. Or just simply an explanation as to what it is, so we can participate. There's a mid-April deadline to sign on. We'll make it. Okay.
Is that going to be a one-time payment or is it going to be spread out?
It'll be spread out just like the
Again,
last one.
Last
Sure. Well, I can't imagine it won't be. It's going to be, it will sound like a lot of money, and then with the time, it's not going to be all that much, but it's going to be worth using and dealing with. We're also, we're going to be developing at the budget planning committee process. We're going to base it kind of on what we did with the CARES funds.
Okay.
On how entities within the county make application for use of those funds. Because the statutory underpinning of all this talks about how the money has to be used.
How do you do that administratively?
You just take applications. You develop an application that says, describe how you're going to use it, for what purpose, how you're going to meet this. And we just need just like we did with the CARES fund.
Right.
We put something out there that said you have to tell us what you're going to do with it. And then it'll finally be up to the board, as it was with CARES. I mean, you will decide it. Staff is going to decide it. We'll make a recommendation.
I don't know if this would be like something the health department might be a little bit more geared towards, or
Well, you'll have-
making those recommendations, but you'll put something together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
The
okay.
committee's going to develop something that everybody will sign off on before any money's released, and you'll sign off on whoever it's being distributed to. And the bottom line, the common sense part of it is, it's got to go address opioid addiction in some way. Could be education, could be treatment. So you're going to have the 2 most obvious departments applying would be, quite frankly, would be health department and community corrections, which are also conceivably some, apparently not much, but some interest from the ambulance service as well.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of
Yeah, I can see that.
Narcan.
Could see county attorney here and there
Could
too.
be county attorney, could be any, there may be all kinds of ideas that will have to be kind of vetted and then brought to you and you should decide. It'll probably come in, we anticipate it'll come in, will be handled that way.
But what you put out is saying this is what the requirements are. It has to be
Mhm.
one, doing one of these things.
Oh, absolutely.
Not what you think you can do.
It'll be what specifically you're gonna address with this requirement, this, and whatever. You see attached, or, and then staff will make a recommendation and you'll be the final decision point. That's why I understand it. We haven't developed the form yet, but we've talked about it at budget planning. So, unless you have questions, that's all I've got.
Okay.
And I'm gonna be gone this afternoon, beginning about 2, for the rest of the day, and then I'll be out Friday.
I wanted to give you two. Came up before our next discussion. Just take a look at it. I did send a copy of this to clients. But Okay, it's 9:35. Just want to tell you about this. I was sitting down thinking, well, you know, what do we do with the task force since it's our choice on who to pick? And so I made a list of what I thought, you know, just for discussing it, you know, what we think. And 12 is a little bit high for a task force, but it kind of slimmed it down. So I thought I'd write up something so we could have something to start with as discussion on. So
Yeah, the original list was 15.
yeah,
Those are just names. Those are
Yeah.
the people that had input or, yeah, it wasn't, it hasn't, nothing's been established, but
well,
just a couple of points to this.
Okay.
I don't mind each one of us having an appointment on that board, but I would really like to keep the elected officials off of this. It needs to really come from the community is whether or not we're going to move forward, or I think if you put
Yeah.
one of us, and everybody's got a vested interest, and they need to put a representative on there to discuss. But if one of us stays on there, then it becomes about policy and it becomes about politics, and we throw
Yeah.
all the other items in there. But if we all each want to make an appointment to that board, that would be fine with me.
Yeah.
I'd
yeah,
like
that
to.
way we can do citizen appointments or whatever,
And
and
there's-
maybe it's more than 3. So
There's
Yeah.
plenty of names to go off of there too, if you
Yeah.
want to. I'd like to keep staff as much out of this as possible too.
yeah,
So,
and Clancy said he didn't really.
No,
anything on
I
it,
know.
but yeah,
This isn't a
That's
planning.
my
yeah.
question.
we'll need legal counsel at some
But-
point. If we want.
yeah. I don't think he needs to be on.
I don't think this is a planning issue at this particular point in time either. In terms of just discussion, I do agree. The extension board, which has been mentioned on that list, fair board already has somebody in mind. I don't know what the foundation wants to do. I know the school district has a vested interest in this process too.
Yeah, I didn't understand. What is that
Well,
about?
because they want to take over. this spot.
Um,
City County for city and school want to buy our spot.
yeah,
The what?
their involvement is Seco Park. So if we vacate
That-
Seco Park,
You know,
they would want
going
to either
back
work with the
this-
city, or I don't know how all that would work to
Yeah.
put athletic facilities in there to continue.
Oh, athletic facilities, what they're talking about, and basic, probably the aquatic center
Aquatic
in
center, yeah.
particular, yeah.
And that's what
those
this-
things.
Yeah.
Okay,
whole thing
And that's what
was
the
here,
drawing that
showing
you see on there, and that's just the kind of a very primitive preliminary, what it could look like type of thing. Like I said, I had that sent over just because that conversation has existed, and
yeah,
I don't want there to be any surprises, and keep the conversation open and transparent throughout, but I'm not so for sure that we need somebody from the department or the College of Ag.
yeah,
And there is somebody listed on there from the original list there, but
well, I see this as a group that's gonna get together and get a vision on, do we move it, do we move it there, do we move it somewhere else, and so I was trying to keep vested interest.
yeah,
off of it, you
yeah, I
know,
think you've got it pretty well covered too. Gary or John from the Economic Development Board could serve on there, or perfectly fine. And that was a question that came up when we had that dialogue too. I'm fine with that. Fine with the foundation. I really would like to keep, the more I've had this discussion here over the last month or so, the more I think it's important to probably keep the elected officials off and just be advised.
Yeah, well, maybe yeah. Yeah, and the reason, I was kind of questioning if we wanted the city on it, but then I looked at, well, the county, we really have a vested interest as our property that we have to control, so that's.
Well, but if the city, you would have to put somebody from the city on there because, you know, that location is also going to include some infrastructural upgrades, and that's going to fall in the city's lap besides Seco Park. But I prefer them to put somebody on, recommend to have somebody on there and not somebody from the actual commission itself.
Yeah,
But, just have one Yeah, take commission off, also said
city representative,
one appointment.
Yeah.
From there.
from the city.
yeah,
So,
and then one
Yeah.
appointment from,
And they could appoint, you know,
Yeah,
whether they
whoever.
want,
Yeah.
whoever they want, okay?
and maybe one from the College of Ag. Making up for maybe one of ours on there. And maybe one from the school district too.
I don't know. Yes.
You know. The potential property,
Mentioning-
well, but the, you know, also the potential property tax impact on that impacts them too, and impacts them more than any one of the other entities as well. Depending on how that lays out, I don't know, that's all hypothetical at this point in time, but.
But wouldn't you have to have all the school districts represented when you do one?
No, because it's just
Just
Manhattan,
Yeah.
one part of it.
Yeah.
Um,
That came up as a question too, and I said the same thing, so.
Well, I don't, because they really want this, and that's important, but, you know,
Well,
are they gonna be able
they-
to
they-
pitch in?
Well, they can
Yes.
be able to pay for it, because I don't want to,
Yeah.
See, that's
Yeah,
the second
that's
part
the
of
big
it.
part.
that's the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure. 6 and 8.
I think,
I would want. Well, and that's part of the task force, not just what can we get out of that, but what's it gonna cost, you know, if we go out.
exactly. I think the first.
Build a new
yeah.
building.
Yeah, do we want to do it?
Yeah.
It's
I
just
think
like
the
a-
first part of this is everybody on the same plane, and is there a vision, and is there a focus, and is
Mhm.
everybody on there? Because if there's not, the rest of it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
But if there is, and that is the recommendation, and that is the direction that everybody wants to go, then this task force needs to be tasked, it's
Mhm.
task force, with the idea of how to get those communal resources back in.
Right, yeah, they need to do the.
Right.
The research.
Do we need someone on here from the rodeo? group?
That's a thought.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
because that's whether they want to,
Yeah.
whether we want to keep them there or.
Yeah, because I actually have a
Separate
feeling,
them.
yeah, I actually have a feeling if they get the indoor rodeo facility there, I think the rodeo is gonna move there regardless of what we do with the
Yeah.
fair. That's my
Wow.
thought.
But
Thought
I know,
about,
but some of them
air
want to
conditioning.
coordinate it with their, you know,
Yeah.
and timing with it, but. That's why I think someone needs, we might want to add someone from the. I don't know,
It's the Caw Valley Rodeos.
Caw Valley Rodeos, they have a board, I don't know who's on that.
But, well, and then, Holly, his name, he's been in there a few times.
Is it Chris?
well, I know Briggs was in here, he pays a lot, does a lot of money in
Yeah.
rodeo, so he would. He was. We need K-State Egg in here, I don't know, 12, does that seem unruly?
That seems about the balance,
About
probably.
that,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not too small, but it's not too large. And that's one of the questions that came up, and I said somewhere between about 8 to 12.
so we have, so you want somebody from the K-State Department of Ag?
College of Ag.
Probably.
I know it's not a voting body, but do you want an even number? So if they come
Well,
back with,
sometimes
a-
it's
they come
better
back
to
with,
have-
a-
If you're just discussing and coming up, I mean,
If it's coming, if the decision's coming down to a 50-50 decision, I don't. It's not something I'm interested in. It needs to be an overwhelming
yep,
majority agree.
I agree 100% with
My
that.
thoughts.
I agree
And
100%.
if it's 50-50, we're gonna do it, then we're not. That's
Yep.
my.
And I'll be
I'm just
honest
thinking
with you,
60-40.
just because we're having the open dialogue, I mean, if this happens, great. If this doesn't happen, great. I mean, it's not at the top of my list in terms of priorities, but just given the timing and just giving the general interest and just giving everything, right? So there's some dots since that can be connected along the way, and if we can, I'm fine with that. I don't have a problem with it. But I do want to make two things clear, and we've already talked about it, is one, is everybody on board with doing this? And I agree, overwhelming majority at least. And two, are we willing to collaboratively and collectively figure out how to bring the resources in? Because we do not have the resources to do this. I want to make that clear.
Even
So-
$6 million for the property is not gonna
Right.
touch it.
Right.
Um,
And you may be able to work out some things there, and there'll be some logistics and some some work that'd have to take place after that to make sure that it's a fit too, but, you know, I'm perfectly fine with that.
And do we want to only looking at that one location, or are there other locations to look at?
Place, we've got.
We've got places to go with it if we want to do it internal, but you know,
We've got
from my,
40 acres.
yeah. From my perspective, it's, you know, do you work with somebody who's putting in some of the infrastructure and some of the facilities to make this happen and make it work? Or do you start completely over from scratch? And you talk about resources, that's even more expensive at that point in time. And I think in terms of internal need, and I'll just talk from the Riley County umbrella here, you know, is the fairgrounds more important than facilities, other facilities at this point in time? How do you prioritize that?
And then we're gonna have to do some maintenance work and some fixing up over there if that's the case.
Don't know if that's the right term for that either, but it's gonna be more of a overhaul is what I'm gonna say.
But, you know, do we want to spend that kind of money in that location? I mean, those are
And
things.
that's been kind of the hang up for me through the years is if you're telling me that we're outgrowing the space and the facilities there. Last thing I want to do is to dump money into it to renovate it and still end up at the same point. We've done too much of that here in Riley County for decades. In terms of, to me, it's just, you know, when does the 250,000 mile car just not work anymore? I use that analogy because it's just simple and sorry if you have a car with 250,000 miles on it.
Congratulations if you got.
That's a good point.
It's not quite, the truck isn't quite there yet.
But yeah, I see this group is just trying to put all the ideas together and, you know, what's the best to do. You know, what can they report to us that they suggest, if anything? Because you have to think about vendors, you have to think about the carnival, the rodeo, they all draw people. And I think they're really important to the fair. I don't know if that location would be that they're talking about, if there's conducive to a carnival or to, you know.
Yeah, the carnival part of it, and I've had several dialogues about this, is the one that concerns me because we're really getting down to where there's only a couple of companies nationwide that are doing those. So how long is that going to last? I think the 4-H, I think the other events, I think the vendors, I think all of that's going to be a solid draw for forever. And I think we, regardless of what we do or don't do, have to get behind that. But in terms of entertainment, the programming for that, you know, we may have to do a 180, or we may have to get creative or innovative. So that's something that has to be kind of probably talked about throughout that process too. So
Take out the carnival, there's no,
No draw.
there's no
I
problem.
know.
There's not a space problem there.
no, there's not. And my thought is, well, if that happens, put a stage out there, some acoustics, and throw some bands up there, other types of entertainment, and it condenses, and who's there, is there, and who's not is not. But yeah, all fairs of different types, regional fairs, state fairs, county fairs are all struggling with that. So it's not just unique to us. So.
Some of the rural areas like Norton, those areas put in their own carnival, about their own equipment, they run it locally. Yeah, and they keep it there all year. And, you know, they have their stable, they bought all the stuff, and that's how they run it. But
That's what I was. There's so many. Or some counties not doing it in carnival.
Yeah,
I don't.
I'd be interested to find out.
Gary could probably find that out.
So I guess as it stands,
So how many did you count?
I counted 12 still, I think.
Okay, we have.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah.
Okay. We have Raleigh County Commissioners 3.
Mhm.
Then we have Extension Board 1,
Mhm.
Fair Board 1.
Mhm.
Rural Economic Development 1, Raleigh County Planning Department 1.
No.
Okay, that's nice. K-State Foundation 1.
Mhm.
Rodeo Board
Mhm.
1. The city 1. College of Ag 1, and then we have the school district.
We didn't officially decide on that one.
Yeah.
Or is that one that you loop in with the city too, maybe? City school district, yeah.
Three.
We add the school one, that'll put it up to 13. I guess it's the odd
Three,
number.
4, 5, 6,
Kind of 3,
7, 8.
4, 5,
Just check out the
6, 7.
planning department one.
But we added the rodeo to that one. Okay, let me try again. My math isn't always good, so you might be right. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm counting 12.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
That's
what I got.
383.
About 3, yeah.
Did you add College of Ag and the rodeo?
Yeah, without 38310 and then school district. What did you get?
Oh, I didn't, yeah, you're probably right, Cindy. I didn't cross 2 of them on the numbers.
Yeah, we crossed out counselor. Planning department.
Thank you again for crossing it.
We're not done yet, by the way.
You can't go back.
Public Works Director.
Yeah. Yeah, these are
I
facilities.
wanted to protect my.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there was 10.
11 with the school district.
Yeah.
No, 12.
I'm gonna go with Cindy on this. She knows numbers.
7, 8,
Here's mine.
11 with school district.
Okay, take them off. Slowly. This one, there's office. This one, we got PA, one for the city. So the only one that didn't get replaced is that one.
So that's 11.
We didn't, so she was off on her.
Was I really?
There's not 12.
It's not
Too late today. Okay.
Oh.
Okay. Say my math is even worse.
So,
I was just, well.
so we are tracking properly. We're okay with the school district then?
No. I don't know. That's what I.
Not sure. I don't think so. Okay. So then we got. About 10.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Or if you want to put. And maybe just leave 2 open at large.
Do that large.
Well, but we're making. You making that large.
That's what I like to do too. That would make it. Well, 13.
We have 10 currently, right?
Yeah, we're.
Okay. I'm fine with
Come
that.
on, Clancy.
I'm just gonna say we got 10.
You're a math guy.
That's true. I should be.
Okay, this.
If we want to go with just 10, that's fine.
Yeah.
I said somewhere between 8 to 12, so that's all right.
So, yeah, the 10 is a good number. Okay, you've got all this and good. I can't even add it, so that's a good thing.
I guess then my question becomes, how do we, what's our process about reaching out to each one of those entities and letting them know? We get official. We'll have to do a car for each one of ours separately, which is fine, but.
You mean for our phone?
I think we should do that open meeting.
Yeah.
We want to put whoever's extension puts on there, have them be in charge of this.
Or can we send out a letter to each of the boards and say what we need to do within like 30 days?
Yeah. I was thinking maybe the economic development committee.
So that's something, we need to maybe designate one of these people as being.
I mean, technically, it won't matter either way on that one because Gary is basically, yeah, it's gonna be Gary. So if you're listening, Gary, it's you. Sorry.
Gary gets to send out a letter or a contact to each of those.
Hey, Gary, some of us got taken off.
Justifiably so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can send out.
You better not.
So.
He won't be surprised by that. Like I said, we discussed last Friday, and I don't think that'll be a problem, so. Okay.
And so we want to say 30 days, we can have these appointments.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds
30
good.
days, by
Would be the, until
Oh,
10
that's
o'clock.
fine.
end of April.
Yeah.
But make sure he's aware that we want to keep people or staff, no elected officials.
Morning.
Morning,
Are you ready for me?
not quite.
Okay.
Yeah, let's finish this, but we're almost finished. So anyway, we're in agreement, 10 members, and a letter will, or contact will go out from extension and Gary to these entities to tell them what we've decided and how many appointees they get by April 30th.
Oh.
Right,
Friday
Good
the
me.
28th hour.
Friday the 28th.
Yeah,
The 30th.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
you should be here more often, Cindy.
Yeah, she said, no. Okay, so we don't need to make a motion on that or anything. Fancy or what, a consensus?
I think this consensus is fine.
Okay, good discussion.
Now we're ready for you, Shelley.
Okay, great. Good morning.
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 When I had my annual performance appraisal, you had requested that I highlight a program a month or thereabouts. And so I'm going to start at the beginning of the juvenile justice system and walk you through each of the 4 or 5 programs that we administer upstairs. Juvenile intake and assessment is directed under KSA 757023. And so it is very prescriptive exactly what services we are to offer and provide in the community. Oftentimes you will hear us call it intake, DIAC, JIAS, juvenile intake. It goes by several different names. So what is juvenile intake and assessment? It's the second step in the system. So the first step you have is law enforcement, and then juvenile intake is the very second step in the overall system. It's a process that is designed to intervene. So we are to intervene immediately with children, youth, and families that have law enforcement contact. We deal with alleged juvenile offenders, alleged children in need of care, all of who are taken into custody by law enforcement agencies. We intervene to prevent further system involvement. We conduct screenings and assessments. We provide crisis intervention services to the youth and families. We assess the children and youth's needs. We make release determinations and recommendations to law enforcement. And then we also make referrals to the youth and family for appropriate services. Who do we serve? So children in need of care, those are children and youth who are under the age of 18 and alleged to be victims of abuse or neglect. Status offenders, those are offenders for which, if they were an adult, they could not be charged with those crimes. So curfew violations, minor in possession, minor in consumption, runaway, tobacco, and truancy. And then juvenile offenders, of course, are those under the age of 18 alleged to have committed a criminal offense. And we provide assistance to all of those different subgroups, as well as victims of human trafficking. We also serve walk-ins. So if a parent or guardian is having difficulties with their child or adolescent, they can contact us, usually from the school systems that we interface with, and they ask us to provide intake and assessment services to their child or youth. When I was preparing this, I kept coming back to law enforcement. Who do we serve? And one of the primary tasks of intake and assessment is to support law enforcement, both in Riley and Clay County. Our job really is to provide the best and most appropriate option for the immediate release or placement of that child or youth. Essentially, the intake officer takes all of the records, reports, all the information that we collect at that time, and we make a release determination. So we're really assisting law enforcement so they can get back on the road and get back to their primary task of public safety. We also assist the county attorney's office. All of the information that we collect, we hand over to the county attorney's office immediately that business day or the following business day if it's in the evening or on weekends. We also provide all the information that we gather to the Department of Children and Families. Again, all of that is really information gathering so that the other parts of the system can make the appropriate decisions when they're processing the case, as well as if they are investigating the case. We just kind of are really the front door of the system to gather all that information, and it really eliminates the need for other partners in the system to ask the exact same questions that we ask when we're on scene with that youth. We of course make recommendations to the county attorney's office for processing the case, as well as should they be processed through a diversion or youth court or court services or community corrections. Part of the statute, as well as the Department of Corrections requirements, is that we have 24-hour availability. Whether we are locally staffed at a facility, like in my urban partners, they actually have a facility for their juvenile intakes, an on-call system, or a notice to appear process. We have to provide law enforcement with numbers of who to contact and how to contact them, both during regular workday and after business hours on weekends and during the holidays. We have a 10-minute telephone response time and a 30-minute physical response time. I wanted to highlight our numbers really quick for you. 2021, we only had 177 intakes, which honestly is probably our lowest ever since taking over the program in 97. I think coming off of COVID and people getting back to their normal lives certainly impacted that in a positive way. In 2021, 42% were juvenile offenders, 13% were status offenders, and 45% were those child in need of care or alleged abused or neglected. 2022, we had 227 total intakes. 33% of those were juvenile offenders, 19 were status offenders. Again, those runaway, MIP, NIC, tobacco, truancy. 44% were children in need of care, and then actually 4% were classified as both. So where they may come to us as a juvenile offender, for whatever reason, usually the victim is in the home, they cannot go back home, and so they turn into a child in need of care and we have to find a placement for them. Kind of the history of intake, just for your information, it was a standalone county agency from 94 to 97, one full-time employee that answered directly to the county commissioners, and then several on-call folks. July of 97, the county asked Community Corrections to take over the program, and we have been overseeing it since July of 97. In looking at how many collaborative relationships it takes to run juvenile intake and assessment, I was actually surprised when I put all these together, but we have an MOA with RCPD for the use of cell phones. We actually, back in the day before we had stipends and we no longer could own cell phones for tax implications that were county owned, we leased them and we actually pay for the service. We have an MOU with RCPD for police protective custody transports, where it's we do some, they do some, and DCF does some. We have an MOU with PD for establishing and maintaining protective homes. For protective home fingerprints, they actually do that for us and then we pay them back. An MOA with the courts for overriding the detention risk assessment. And then an MOA with DCF that clarifies roles and responsibilities as it pertains to those children in need of care. I only think I have 1 or 2 more minutes, so I will go through this really quick, but we do an on-call. They are on call from 5 o'clock on Monday to 8 a.m. the following Monday, of course, 24 hours a day on Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. I try to do the calendar the month before, and from experience, I ask them when they cannot be on call and put them on the calendar accordingly versus just putting them on the calendar and hoping that it works out. We have had a lot less turnover when I switch strategies on how to schedule those people, especially on weekends and holidays. 100% of our night intakes and weekend intakes happen at the law enforcement centers. So Clay County Sheriff's Office, Riley County Police Department. And of course, Sandy and I are on call. One of us is always on call 24/7 to serve as assistants for these folks because they are truly part-time on call as needed folks. This just kind of talks about all the screenings and assessment from start to finish. The entire process minus finding a placement for them is about an hour to get through all of our screenings and assessments. And I kind of already talked about the referrals that we make for services. Really, intake is my favorite program in that if we truly intervene at the start of the system, we can make a difference on whether or not they continue to need services or penetrate the system further as a juvenile offender. We do parenting education classes, and then of course protective homes, which are for our police protective custody kids that need a safe place until court. We partner with Westview Community Church, and they provide us gender specific bags of clothing. This is actually at the church, and we have a key where we can access that at any time. It's just we couldn't do what we do and provide the services without Westview's partnership. It's about 15 years running, and it's amazing. The Daniel Keating Foundation also is one of our partners. Again, we could not provide the level of services that we provide without it. They provide a tub with all of the essentials that you would need to care for a kiddo for those 72 hours. They provide teenage cinch bags, which are the bottom two pictures, which are just things that a teenager would feel more comfortable with being away from their home for that 72 hours, as well as a $100 gift card. We found it really hard to keep adolescent clothes in stock and the correct sizes. And so the foundation, the Daniel Keating Foundation, actually gives us $100 gift cards to Target or Walmart, and the kids get to choose where they want to get those clothes that they need for 72 hours. If there is, for example, a drug warrant that people go into their homes, they cannot get their stuff, their clothing or their personal needs out of the home before the police get theirs. Or a lot of times they're taken from school, and so they have literally nothing except for the clothes on their back when they come to the attention of law enforcement. That was really fast. I know I talk fast, but juvenile intake is really the first start of the system, and I would argue the most vital program that we provide upstairs. Certainly the most draining as far as time and resources in the middle of the night, but nonetheless, it is worth it. Really quick, I had mentioned in my last sentence of my commission agenda report, I just wanted to give you a quick update on the diversions. The county, you're getting your money's worth on the county attorney that is backing up, cleaning up COVID backup. From January through last Wednesday, we had gotten 5 referrals for youth court diversion from the county attorney's office. So 2 months, roughly, 5 referrals. Since last Wednesday, we've received 14. So little trickle down effect. What I've had to do, because Michael is my one-man band for youth court diversion, I've had to pull 2 other staff members in order to process these in a manner that meets our state standards. And so 2 other staff are sacrificing other parts of their workload to help us get these processed. Start to finish, probably a 3-hour process, which does not include the youth court hearing, where the kids will appear before a jury of their peers and then be sentenced to be supervised by Michael for about 4 months on average. So those 14 cases, I'm told, are only half of what we are going to get in the next few weeks. So I have a great team. I sent out an email on Monday and immediately had folks say that they wanted to step up and help Michael out, so he was not drowning so much. So you're definitely getting your money's worth from that part-time contract attorney in processing those backlog cases. So really fast in questions.
Well, thank you for your report.
Yeah, and I will maybe ask more time as I go through the other 4 programs, so I'm not so
Yeah.
rushed. Okay, thank you,
Thank
folks.
you. This was board.
Ready for me?
Yes.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Elizabeth Ward, Human Resources Director. And I would like to speak to you today about our Pawnee contract for EAP services for all of our non-benefits eligible employees, which I think is down here somewhere.
We've got to go down a little ways.
Keep going. Okay. I was there then. Okay. There we go. So basically, this is a contract renewal. This usually does. Okay. No, I don't know what I did. Here, okay. All right. Hands off. This is a contract renewal. This is a contract that historically we have had, and it did lapse for a couple of years. And then last year we did renew this contract and have been using the EAP services for a full year. And the lapse was not due to our intention, to be honest. It was something that with turnover with Pawnee, they actually continued to bill us for a year and a half, and we had the services, but we didn't have a contract in place. It was just, they had some turnover and there were just some things happening there. EAP, I think you are all aware, is a really important tool for our employees, and it will help with anything really personal or work related. So if someone has any type of a situation where they would like to speak to a professional with this program in place, they're able to go make up to 3 appointments themselves, their family members, anyone that's directly tied to an immediate family with Riley County. And the reason that we have this additional contract is because we have a kind of a large group of employees who are not covered by our state benefits, and they would not be able to use the AP that is supplied by the state. And secondarily, it is difficult to get appointments across the board with any mental health, and they found that by calling the state call-in center, it's been weeks, if not more than a month, to try to get an additional appointment. And Pawnee is local in our community and has been much more accessible. And this is budgeted. It is in our budget. I did work with Daryl to make sure that we do have that covered. So this is not an additional budgetary request either.
Questions on numbers, but I know you said it's for 300. We have 300 that are, I mean, because we have around that, we have 300 full-time.
We have we have 270 regular
Yeah,
employees, right?
But there's 300 more that are,
Yeah, so there is some crossover because of some of the employees, more regular employees that can't get the appointment on the state. But we also have 150 volunteer, 130 to 150 depends. It fluctuates a little, volunteer firefighters who are eligible for this. All of our PRN, EMS who would be eligible for this, all of our election workers. So the actual number is a little higher than 300. But some of them are so as needed, so once a year, that so that's the number that we landed on when we kind of did an analysis last year.
but I was just saying, because 300, I know it's not exactly roughly that, but there's another 300
Yes.
on top of that.
Yes, we
full-time.
we actually are responsible for about over 650 employees if we count all of our other employees. Yeah. And some of them have employment status, right? Because some of them are as needed PRN. Some of them have this interesting classification with the Federal Labor Standards Act. So all of the volunteer firefighters do have some coverage as employees. They're not full-time employees. They're not really as needed employees, but there's some overlapping jurisdictions there. It's kind of interesting. But those are, I mention them often because they're some of probably the higher risk for needing some assistance. You know,
Have we used this amount in the past?
we have used EAP. We don't get, so we can't get a report, obviously, of who and when and how
Right.
much, but we can get a usage report. And so I don't have one for 2022. I have asked Di Henricks for a usage report. So I can't give you an exact number, but I know because Michelle and I have both spoken to employees who are calling and working with Funny. So we know we're using it. And we do get now.
Somehow we let these people know that this is available.
We do, yep. So we have it posted in all of our break rooms. We have we take it to staff meetings, we put it at our benefits meeting. And then we just regularly talk about it as well and we send out, obviously, if anyone says anything or we have anyone that's experiencing any type of a difficulty that a supervisor is aware of, they're very good about getting those pushed out too. Yeah,
It's one thing to have in place, but make sure everybody knows it's
absolutely,
available.
right?
Yeah,
There's no
but-
point of just checking the box. We need
Right.
to make sure they know it can use it. Yeah.
And back to the cost, is this like a total amount of 3,600 annually that we get charged by Pawnee, or is it based on how many?
No, we basically pay for the head count and we encourage them to use it. So that is one rate that we would get charged for whomever uses it.
Okay. It's a good source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem.
I'll go ahead and make a motion then to approve the contract with the County Mental Health Services for an employee assistance program covering Riley County employees and their families.
No second.
So moved and seconded to approve the contract with Pawnee Mental Health Services for employee assistance for the employee assistance program. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Commissioner Michelle is actually standing in for Rich today. We can talk to you about this.
Hello, Commissioners. Michelle Reed, the Payroll Benefits and Employee Relations Manager. I'm here today to request to fill our as-needed HR clerical position. This position has been really critical to us, and this person's been the lead on the recruiting, records management, and helping with filing. She can also help within our departments as a whole, but she has been leading the recruiting as far as getting in touch with candidates, scheduling interviews, doing pre-screenings. She is utilized from the minute she walks in until 5 minutes after she's supposed to leave. So we feel it's critical to fill this position. It's already budgeted in our budget for the year, and it is a position that is 1,000 hours or less. And I will answer any questions if you have any questions about the position.
A student in there now, but
It's actually not a student.
just the timing of when they're leaving. Or when
Yeah.
that was about indispensable.
We have hired students. We've also hired some people associated with Fort Riley, some military spouses, and they have been absolutely amazing.
We've asked this person to, stay and just, have a relationship, long distance, but she's not for that.
This particular person, it will be sorely missed and has created SOPs and has created a good workflow of systems. We have a lot of new things with Velocity. I'm excited to see how well that is taken up with the next person.
Any further questions?
No. Go ahead and move that the board approve the position of part-time HR clerical assistant for the Riley County Clerk's Office.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the position of part-time HR clerical assistant for the Raleigh County Clerk's Office. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you very much.
Twenty-three, 23. Fairmont.
Is that
Far away.
1020?
Yep,
Okay.
that's behind about 30 to 45 seconds.
So you have to speed that. Make it about 30 seconds.
And I'm good, so you can kind of see the screen a little better. Um, Good morning, folks. Shelley Foltz has made application with Raleigh County Planning and Development requesting to replat lot 1 and lot 2 of Shirley Ranch Unit 2 into 2 lots and update the final development plan associated with the planned unit development zoning designation for the property. It's a fairly straightforward situation, but it's made complicated because of that planned unit development. The subject property is owned by Early Foltz, Shelley Foltz, and Drew Broken. The applicant wishes to replat the 2 lots, reconfiguring the common property line between the 2 lots. There's also a request to update the final development plan to reflect the change to the lot layout. Simple as that, for the most part. The subject site is generally located approximately 1,920 feet north of Anderson Avenue on the east side of West 60th Avenue in Wildcat Township. In October 2000, the subject site was rezoned from A for single family residential, so we know as SF1 now, and G1 general agricultural to the A5 single family residential and platted as lots 1 and 2 of the Shirley Ranch subdivision. However, in April of 2013, the property was rezoned from SF5 single family residential to RPUD and replatted into 2 residential lots. The reason for that was simply to try to enforce, have a mechanism to enforce the noise disclosure before Riley at the time. And that's why that went that route. There was nothing really special going on there to warrant a PUD zoning designation. And here we have all, there is no request to rezone the property at this time. There is a request to update the final development plan associated with the PUD zoning designation of the property. This is to basically show the new configuration of the lots on the final development plan. There are no conditional uses, special uses, or variances associated with the property. Riley County Fire District number 1 will continue to serve the site. The nearest county fire station is located at 31 West 69th Avenue. The subject site is located within 5 road miles of the fire station. And this has not changed since 2013. The subject site is located within the LUPZ or land use planning zone as per the most recent joint land use study. The applicant filed a Fort Riley, Kansas area of military impact real estate disclosure form, the register of deeds as a condition of the proposed residential PUD in 2013. And there are no new residences proposed with this request. And so it's kind of hard to see here, but this was the original lot line coming across here, but all the way across here between the 2 lots. In 2013, it was suspected that the home that was to be built here would need this area up here for a septic system. But something happened during the construction of the home that rendered this useless. So they had to go to the south of the home, as you'll see, and they just simply replatted this line up here. What they'd like to do, the owner, this is Early Foltz lot here, what they would like to do is return this area to this lot, essentially. And because of some landscaping along this area here, the lot line was pushed northern or further north than the original lot line that went across, straight across here. That's why it's kind of it's not exactly like the original, but it's a close return. And this is the final development plan. And we had to make a finding, and the board has to make a finding, that it is in substantial conformance with the preliminary development plan, which is an attachment from staff report. As we have reviewed, it is in substantial conformance with the preliminary development plan. We simply updated the lot line, obviously, but also references to the
the current land use regulations rather than the Riley County zoning regulations and subdivision regulations separately. And also references to the current zoning designations, that's how they are named. A few pictures of the site. This is the home on lot 1, the furthest north of the 2 lots. Again, no physical changes with the buildings are being proposed. This is straight down the driveway. There was earlier this year, there was a barn here, and it burned down. And so that is not on the development plan. And this is the home, the newer of the 2 homes that was built on the southernmost lot. There's another picture of it there. Driveway included, a loop driveway in front of the house, and a closer look at the home. This home is currently on the market and being sold. They are looking to try to close on this within a week, I believe. It's a hurry up situation. So on March 13th of this year, Raleigh County Planning Board forwarded a recommendation of approval to the Board of Commissioners of Raleigh County of the request to amend the final development plan associated with the planned unit development zoning designation of a tract of land, as it was determined to be in substantial conformance to the preliminary development plan. The board also approved the final plat of Shirley Ranch Unit 3, as it determined that all requirements of the Raleigh County land development regulations and sanitary code have been met. Staff recommends that the board approve the final development plan as requested. And staff also recommends that the Board of County Commissioners acknowledge the approved final plat of Shirley Ranch Unit 3, accepting any easements, rights of way, or license session that's shown to be dedicated on the final plat. So that's all I have. Have any questions regarding the plat?
I do.
So this remains a PUD then,
Yes,
so what could happen in the future with that?
it's tied to that development plan.
So it could be divided further.
If so, then again, we request that the way the land development regulations read now, which we're gonna need a little bit of tweaking, I think. There's a certain amount of change that can occur on a final development plan that will allow it to, there's no action needed. Above that, then it has to go through the whole process again. So it's a little bit onerous. Years ago, the way we looked at it is there's a set of substantial conformance, criteria that if someone wanted to update a final development plan, make any kind of change to go to that criteria. There's really nothing written that says that. So I'd like to get that more solid. But as far as future development, if they wanted to go in and replat it into other lots, which is unlikely in this case. One, because of the location in the Hidden Valley subdivision and the size of the lots. They would definitely, if they wanted to do something else that's not on the final development plan, they'd have to come and see it. It might require further action.
It's not written, put in another house and septic unit.
No. So no new homes. What you see is really what you get. The final development plan really is to update the language and references to modern day stuff. And stuff. Things that are no longer existing, that kind of thing.
Interesting, so that's why I was looking at this and well, it was here, but then it wasn't, and it's there, I've been bounced back and forth. Like I said, it shows that there's a barn there, but it's not.
Yeah. That burned down a couple months ago.
I'm saying it's still on the.
Yeah, and that allows them to rebuild if they want.
So it's not gonna have that angled lot line anymore, is that correct? Okay.
So
Let me get a couple pictures here.
It will look like
Or
that.
it's gonna look like that.
Yeah.
It will have the angle on
Yeah, a little bit of one.
it. Okay, it's to accommodate the lateral field, correct?
Well, the lateral goes down here. They did some extensive landscaping along here and the buyer of the home wanted that.
Oh,
It's like. Okay, so they adjusted rather than going right back to the original line, which was from this point across. So it's just to accommodate them. And it doesn't harm anything else, really. It doesn't get in the way of the sanitary code or anything official. And the owner of lot one is. They get all this back.
It's just, I've got an angle on my lot, it doesn't make any sense, you know, so I'm just kind of hoping for why they want that, you know, how do you figure out where it goes? Anyway.
go ahead then and make a motion to sign resolution 032323. That's kind of interesting considering the dates today. Approving the amended final development plan associated with the plan unit development zoning designation of a tract of land as it was determined to be in substantial conformance with the preliminary development plan and meets the minimum requirements of the Riley County Land Development Regulations and Sanitary Code.
No second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 032323 as stated. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then follow-up motion, motion to approve resolution 032323 once again, acknowledging the final approved plat of the Shirley Ranch Unit 3 and accept any easements, right-of-ways, or licenses to be shown dedicated on the final plat as it was determined that all requirements of the Riley County Land Development Regulations and Sanitary Code have been met.
No second.
It's been moved and seconded to sign resolution 032323 approved request for the development plan unit development zone designation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have a couple Mylars out here for you to sign. Thanks for your signature out there.
Okay.
Who's supposed to attach the signatures? Are you gonna sign for Rich?
Soon. I was gonna say, it's gonna be my next question. Can I wait till Monday for him to sign?
I know.
Susan.
Okay.
Susan also.
Susan, you do it? Yeah, they're in a hurry. They're gonna be buying day one. And you're going.
But he always is, so yeah, whatever.
So, Susan, is she available? Is she ready for this? Okay. That's the.
He won't be surprised if she's done this. one.
Yeah, like, you know, when we were little, we had the baseball cards and our spokes were bicycles.
You know, Okay.
That's cool.
Wow.
Good thing you stopped him when you did then.
Yeah, I could go.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Commissioners?
Yes.
Okay.
Morning.
Morning.
Thanks for having me down. I know we've moved this around a couple of times from conflicts I had arise, so I appreciate your indulgence there to be able to do that. I thought I'd start out this morning with just kind of a levy improvement update. It's kind of reached the midpoint milestone, if you will. So it's about a 2-year project, a little more than that, from that aspect of things. Have done a lot of work, really, a lot of it's, a lot of it's visible and some of it isn't so visible. It's about to become more visible. As you probably have seen and heard. So we've really focused on a lot of the utility relocations, and a lot of work has been done on the Kansas River side of things, and a lot of shift will go over to the Blue River side of things, and where you've seen a lot of that work happening. Probably the most notable recently was we did close the Hayes Drive down at Casement. So you have to go around. Very popular. It's unfortunately, it's gonna be closed for quite a while, because probably into November. Hopefully everything will cooperate, and if you've been by there prior, you've seen a lot of construction. So one of the big changes there is there's a compared to what used to be there used to be a small flapper gate there that let the water through, and we're changing that to a massive gate box valve that allows us to divert flow away from the downtown area that typically would go along the ditch along 24 into the Kansas River. Right up there, just across from the water treatment plant on the Bertrand box that comes from the campus. There's 2 8x8 underground boxes, storm boxes that carry the water from Campus Creek, essentially. Takes it underground all the way to that point, and we've got a diverter there. And there's a big detention pond there in that area, and we can either divert that water to go south to the Kansas River, or we can divert it to go east and go through this new box or that old box. Well, that capacity really wasn't there to handle a lot of the flow. We're also improving that channel to handle more flow, to take that pressure off, because the frontage road there can flood fairly easily. And so that's the big part of that. Well, part of that is then the reason for the road closure is that there'll be, I think there's 10x8 prefab storm sewers that will go from that box all the way under the road and then to the other side, to the west side of the road. So that's not something you can bore. You need to trench that out, make sure that elevations or you get that right. So that's part of that. And then, yeah, I don't know if you recall on the design, but we're raising the levee by about 3 feet on that Blue River section. So in conjunction with that, there'll be a berm along the south side of Casement that will run all the way to the west of Hayes a ways until it reaches that elevation. So it'll taper from where it is now, and that ultimately will join a 3-foot rise on the levee. And then there's a sandbag gap in the Hayes Drive itself. for the future. So and there was a design originally that was going to elevate that whole intersection. And it's going to require us to probably purchase some homes on the other side. And we said, that's not a good option. And sandbag gaps aren't great options either. We've got a couple of them on that if things get to that level that we need to do it. We're looking, we still are working with the design on the railroad gap on the Blue River where the UP Railroad comes in, and we're looking at what's called a stop log. They're metal gates that can get folded down. They're better for the railroad because you can do it quicker. If you have previously, we've had sandbag gaps, which we've done twice since in my career here. And that shuts things down for quite a long time because you don't really, that's a big effort to build that sandbag gap. And you can't just take it out and let the train explode again, even when things go down a little bit, if that threat continues. So it's a better situation, so there's a lot of work that's going to happen there. We are going to maintain pedestrian access, and there'll be some different routes through that construction period, so folks can still access that trail that has been built to get to Points area to McCall and that particular area, so the folks can still come down Hayes right up to that box point to access the businesses, but folks that have used it to make their route simpler or to access businesses or commerce, they'll have to reroute through Tuttle Creek. We have increased some of the signal time at Casement and 24, so in Tuttle Creek Boulevard. So to give folks that are using that intersection more time, we're monitoring that. So if we need to adjust it, we can do that as well. So just wanted to keep that. And then we're also in conjunction with just the pedestrian aspect point. If you've been by there lately, you've noticed a lot of construction there in front of the school district's property and bus barn and the meals facility there. We added on to the contract for their contractor we're building a new sidewalk essentially and pathway on the east side of Hayes Drive all the way from McCall to Casement. This is the first stretch that basically there's an existing sidewalk there along Burger King and it stops at that new frontage road. Well, this will pick that sidewalk up and take it further. There's always been a ditch there. So we have to get rid of the ditch and put a storm sewer in.
I was wondering why they were laying out all the drainage tubes and stuff there.
So there'll be a underground storm sewer that whole distance as well. And that will go ultimately the length. This first section just goes to Levy Drive, where it's adjacent to school district property. And that project is going well. About all the storm sewers about in, and then they'll put the sidewalk in. And the design is underway for the rest of it. We anticipate bidding that later this year because we'd like to get that built on roads closed. And that would be very beneficial so that things can, and gives folks a more direct route and a paved route and a safer route to be able to do that. So I know that closing probably has been on your radar and had some constituents that have probably asked what's going on there. So that's what's going on. We've got some
I pointed out
good information on our webpage.
I have pointed out in all disclosure to most of them because I live over in the Northview area, and I'm sure you've heard from Commissioner Morse on this too, that you're doing multiple projects and trying to do them all at once to save time and keep it open once it finally gets back open. So
right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Also, switching to Aggieville, which has certainly been in the news. Construction is going well on the Manhattan portion of the project. So right now we had Bluemont, North Manhattan closed from Bluemont back to Morrow and had focused on really doing the bulk of the paving work. Bulk of the paving work is complete. We had Little Morrow closed. We reopened it a few days ago. So actually the beginning of the week, you can actually take Little Morrow and go east now, but really the only thing you can do is access the alleyway. Well, so which isn't a real convenient thing because a lot of times there's delivery trucks in the alley. But at least there's good access. There's the pedestrian sidewalk on the east side next to all the businesses is complete and it's open to pedestrian traffic, and then they're working on the rest of the amenities and the sidewalk on the other side. We hope to have that wrapped up there in a couple of months, and then the main construction now is swung to the Morrow and North Manhattan intersection. Originally, they were going to close that and try to get it all done. Contractor understands the challenge that's had with the businesses and the inconveniences, so they've created a plan to do that in 3 segments to keep traffic open. So you can come North Manhattan, northbound, and make a right on Morrow, and that will, their plan is to keep that active through the duration of the project to the extent possible. There may be a few days where they'll have to close it to make one final forward, but that particular project is going well. Obviously, you heard the news about the Midtown update. BOCC 9 Development had some financer that's backed out. They've announced that they're putting that project on pause for anticipate that to be 6 months to a year, is what they have announced at the chamber board meeting this week. They indicated they've already put about 12 million in hard and soft costs into that project, so they don't anticipate changing it to any degree. They're just looking for replacement folks to help step back into what they've lost. So they've opened the roadways back up, 12th Street's back open, Laramie's back open, and that will put that on hold. We were in a design phase on both of the 12th Street on the public portions of the project. Again, the aspect of this from a city perspective is we transferred the property to BOCC 9 in exchange for a minimum of $40 million of investment in that site. If they don't reach that in the timeline threshold, which is about 38 months. So it's into 2016. Originally, they had planned to finish this project at the end of 24. So their delay probably still fits within that timeline. Then they owe us 2.3 million for the land. The land transfer has occurred. The city has no other funding or any other mechanisms in the deal at all. We're not a party to that development other than the land transfer. Questions on that at all? Just some recent city commission activity. We did pass a resolution on the 27th of February that authorized a private developer to apply for a Kansas Housing Investor Tax Credit Program. This is a new program by the state of Kansas. We've always had these tax credit applications, but they've been federal tax credits, and the city has just typically passed like a resolution of intent that supports their application. Here, we actually had to pass the resolutions that allows the developer to apply, and some of the new programs have this provision in it as well. And so this was for 3 lots that are out on Bramblewood Court. That's in the Scenic Meadow subdivision off of Scenic Drive. Same developer that's been there. He's got 3 lots remaining. There's quite a few rental properties. These are have to be rental homes, and so the commission heard that request and decided to move forward with it. So I wanted you to be aware of that. Also at that meeting, they approved, we received a recreation trails grant for about $117,000 to repair some of the linear park on South Manhattan Avenue, between South Manhattan Avenue along Wildcat Creek, along the south side over to the Holodome area, or the old Holodome, excuse me, the Four Seasons, or the Four
Sheridan.
4 points. There we go. 4 something. And then they also received a linear trail grant to upgrade some of the work on the levee, and then also $245,000 grant from the National Park Service and the Water Conservation Fund to do some additional phasing and improvement work on Roger Schultz Community Park, which is up in the Lee Mill Heights area. So those were good. having had some of those for quite a while, so it's good to see some funding in some of those programs that we can have access to. We also awarded a contract to T&M Construction for the Connecting Links program. So you've seen over the years, we've done some panel replacement on Fort Riley Boulevard over the years. And so this is another section that'll be between Juliet and 10th Street to do some of that work. It's a Fort Riley is called a connecting link. It's the only connecting link that we have, and we share the maintenance expenses 50-50 with KDOT on that, but we have to apply. It's not a guaranteed revenue stream like some of our other KDOT programs are.
That links-
For revenue stream.
Greater scheme of things isn't very old necessarily, but it goes from 17th Street all the way back around to 24. Is that the entire length or?
Of the connecting link? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And this is a section, some of the older
Got it.
sections,
Okay.
yeah, that haven't been done. The on the 21st, the commission, and then again on the 7th, approved the annexation agreement and the annexation of the land on Skyway Drive and West 68th Street. So that's the new business park land, and certainly you all were involved in that process because it's an island annexation. So now that it's about a 78.73 acre tract of land, and the zoning process is now in process. So that'll be going through the planning board, is also the back to the city commission on that particular zoning element. Also, on the 21st of February, the commission did approve a land purchase for a 9 acre tract of land adjacent to the Living Word Church, as well as our fire station number 3 on Amherst Avenue. So it's land we identified when we originally bought that tract for the fire station relocation to help with some of our training. Currently, and that's really the intent, is to help relocate our training that's occurring out of the headquarters fire station on Denison. As we work with the university to renew new 50-year lease on that headquarters station, one of the things that we got feedback on was they weren't excited about our training site there. We've got our burn unit there. The tower's pretty old and crumbly, so they really wanted us to try and take that somewhere else. So that's part of what this investment is about. And, we'll be working over the next several years to gradually, some of that we can relocate. So there's some buildings, there's storage building there. That burn unit is made of Conex boxes, so it can be relocated. So that's the goal there, was to secure that site, because there were others that were trying to purchase it as well. We had a first right of refusal on it originally, and so we followed through with that particular purchase. But it's just a training ground. The headquarters station is staying where it is, and negotiations are going well for extending that lease another 50 years, which expires, I think, in 2035. So there's some time to work on. The commission also has awarded, starting to do some of our maintenance activity, and awarded a contract to Fire Construction to do some pavement replacement at next to Anthony Middle School on Browning. You've done that route. We've had extreme joint failure on that pavement. And it's really hard to patch and hold. So we're going to totally reconstruct that portion of the roadway. The city commission has also just this past meeting approved a construction contract with a firm out of Leavenworth Excavating and Equipment Company to redo Fremont Street between 11th and 14th, so adjacent to City Park. We were going to do that in phases. We're going to start with the 11th to 12th Street segment. Just real shortly here, we probably will continue to do that, and then we were going to hold the rest of it till after Laramie got done. Now that we've had this delay on the Laramie project, we're probably going to go ahead and do that Fremont. We've got one water line replacement and a big water line to add to help increase capacity in that particular area. So I think there's about 6 different projects within this project. One of the Emphasis for this was a ATA grant that was got for about $400,000 of that is for ATA improvements and pedestrian improvements and a loading zone there at Manhattan Avenue is where that is, but it's makes pedestrian improvements on both sides of the street in that particular area. So there's some sanitary sewer and some storm sewer and some other improvements that are occurring with that particular project. We also had the first reading of the annexation ordinance this past meeting for the northwest portion of the community on Victory Drive. This is throughout the far northwest corner, about 21.8 acres. Just kind of the next phase of the Hartford Hills master plan area. So well up on the hill that's connecting it's west of Grandmere and up on that particular Burton Land Company is the developer, and that will start and first reading of the rezoning of that as well. The other thing the commission recently did was had a discussion session to look at requesting to participate in a funding effort for entrepreneurial fund locally, a revolving loan fund. Request of the commission was $750,000 over total $250 a year over 3 years. I'd say the general sentiment was favorable for that. We're just looking at all of our sources right now because we've had the tech college has been to us and asked for some assistance with their project. So just trying to line everything out. Our new sales tax started in January, and so we're looking for this month to get our first check from that to see if it fits with where we thought things were going to be. So that's kind of playing into that. But I would say generally the commission was favorable towards that. Just kind of an update on our joint maintenance facility. We're getting ready to do some work on that intersection at Levy Drive and US 24. Ebert's been awarded that contract, so that will start about the first week of April with some lane restrictions. That's a full-blown big intersection improvement with long right-hand turns both directions, as well as acceleration and deceleration lanes, plus longer left turning lanes for both of that. And so that project's going to go. We also, KDOT is going to mill and overlay 24 from the mall to XL Road this spring or summer. So we're trying to coordinate all of that work as well with them. So that's going to create some slowdowns in that particular area.
That's okay, because that hasn't happened recently.
Something we get phone calls on quite a while. So the joint maintenance facility is complete and open. We celebrated it and we're gradually getting moved into it. I think we're probably about 80% moved into it. There's still site work being done and finished up over time, but it's going to be a great facility for us moving forward. We also awarded a water main replacement, which is right under the street on College Heights. College Heights between Denison and Sunset. So if you travel that over the years, it's in pretty bad shape. So that will be happening this summer. Hopefully getting it done and completed from that, and that was awarded to Larson Construction. Up on Kimball Avenue, we're proceeding with work, both of those two projects, the middle section of Kimball near Great Science. That project is pretty well wrapped up. There'll be some periodic landscaping work that in irrigation and some landscaping and some other improvements along there. The frontage road, the back frontage road from College to the back of the Great Science is paved and in. It's not finalized yet. They're still doing some improvements there, and there's some changes to that entryway to the Great Science complex where it used to kind of hug up. It's going to get straightened out, create a safer roadway. Right now, it's kind of like you're driving through a parking lot or several parking lots. So we're trying to delineate it more as a street that connect to different parking lots. And so that work is being done. K-State also has work done in conjunction with that, so that they're paying for separately, so they're trying to get all that out. We've been informed, and I'm pretty sure you probably are aware with the roundabouts that KDOT's planning at K-113 and 24 and the Dam Road is at 13. That schedule, that's our understanding that they plan to close 24, which is going to put a lot of pressure on Marlette and Kimball. So originally, I think their timeline was going to be on the bid schedule for late this year for next year construction, and I think it's been delayed.
6 to 8 months is what they're saying.
So probably not bid until next year, but more of a 25 construction. So that was kind of when we had kind of planned to delay ours because they were going to go first and we didn't want to be disruptive and carry more traffic. And so we may move forward with segments of ours to try and get it out of the way. And a big part of that will be start with that, continuing that back frontage road all the way over to Dennis. So there's, when we do shut down portions of that intersection for construction of Denison and Kimball, there'll be access that folks will have from. But that's the last big project we've got, is that intersection, and it'll look a lot like the College and Denison intersection from the breadth and the amenities and that sort of thing. So there's, and then the rest of the improvements on Denison itself, and those will continue. The other project that's out to bid right now that we are hopeful, we had several companies that have plans, so we're hoping to have good bids. You never know how things are turning out these days, and that's the Grandmere Parkway and Kimball roundabout. That was the first, I want to say, experimental roundabout in the state of Kansas, unfortunately, and was way too small. And then we tried to enlarge it, and that created all those cracks and joints that have failed. And so the goal is to build a new roundabout slightly to the northwest of that. So they'll have a little bit more of a crook, but if everything works out and we get that awarded, we want to get the bulk of that constructed so that we can have Kimball back open by the time school starts. So
Ron,
yes.
that is in such disrepair, that roundabout. Are you planning to repair that as before you can?
So our goal,
That's a mess up.
I don't think you can do anything with that at this point in time.
it'll be like pothole patching
Yeah.
until
I mean, it's
so,
really-
but this summer, we've actually planned to close that section of Kimball
Okay.
to start the new roundabout. And there'll be some local traffic detours and that sort of thing, and then have a new, better pavement bypass while that roundabout continues to get constructed.
Good. I hope that moves along very quickly.
I agree. And really, I think that was the bulk of the things that I had. Still doing some work on points that'll continue here on the 600 block. They're making good progress. That should start pouring. The replacement paving of that and the intersection, the new signals of Juliet. We do have a grant to continue on Juliet, but that doesn't get awarded until next year, so it's still under design. So that's continuing. We will have a project to rebuild Houston between 3rd and 4th, where we rerouted that sewer, and that pavement's got some. We're not fixing that pavement because we're going to have a project to fully replace it. So it's kind of rough right there as well. And then just related to downtown, we've got the Downtown Next planning effort that's looking at potential redevelopment efforts. There's a survey out there right now on the city's website. So obviously you all are a significant anchor downtown, and so your opinions matter. So I encourage you all and your staff to jump on there and answer that survey. That I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I have another
Sure.
issue. What are your plans on Anderson Avenue? You know, going west, especially from Dillon's all the way west. There's some huge repairs that needs to be made. Big potholes. I'm dodging potholes all the time, and people are like that all the way down
Especially,
What are the plans?
especially that section west of Sepcha. is
Right.
Another big section of joint failure. And so actually it's on the list this year to replace.
Good.
So
Yeah, I think patching doesn't.
again,
get too
the
good.
challenge we both face is
Yeah.
projects and availability of contractors and hopefully the, close to what the estimates are. So that's the challenge we face, but that's the intent is to address that this year.
You're
Is
not,
it- Are you gonna have a bypass then for Anderson?
No, it'll be down to 2 lanes. They'll have to do it periodically.
there's no other way to do that.
That's just too important. We do have another project that will replace a water line. And that water main's under Anderson, essentially from roughly almost just west of Sunset, all the way to Connecticut. That's why we haven't done a lot of work on that one, because it's gonna get tore up. And replaced as part of that water line project. And that hopefully will be bid this year as well.
Good.
She won't do it at the same time you've got Kimball closed down.
No, that's where we
Okay,
have
okay.
to
That's
figure
what I
out
figured.
that revised schedule.
Seems like everything needs to be fixed at once. right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not enough money to do all of that. Or contractors.
Yeah.
Well, we are looking at that little section of Marlette over there too, for the same reason. We were under interpretation that they were gonna do one of those roundabouts and then the second roundabout. I didn't know which order, but
Right.
we were a little surprised when they said they're gonna do it all at the same time, particularly when one of their facilities is stuck in the middle of all that, but
Right.
probably better to maybe to do them all at once and just get it done instead of phasing
So
it
they might
out.
get more favorable
Yeah.
bids, from that standpoint. But yeah, I think I've raised in the past to be, we certainly would like to work with you. I think there would be a desire to, one of the things we noticed with the closures we've had on Kimball and the rerouting on part of that is that I think it'd be desirable to build some turning lanes.
Yeah.
At college,
Public Works.
at least at college and
Yeah.
likely at Browning. as
Yeah.
well. So,
Yeah, it's been talked about.
That's what he's, yeah.
and sticking some streetlights in them. Okay.
I'm glad to hear they're getting the, I'd heard that was the fire department building, the headquarters was gonna stay and the training
Yeah.
was gone. But all of it, everything they make, every time the foundation makes presentations, they always show new buildings, they show everything wiped out in that corner, and I'm going, wait a minute, I hope that's not right.
I got into a very lively conversation on that over the weekend too, and I was under the interpretation it was just training. This, oh, they're moving it all over their headquarters. You guys should combine all your efforts into one building, and I'm like,
Oh.
I don't think that's actually accurate.
So
So
they're, headquarters stay there.
now maybe there needs to be some substantial improvements to the headquarters building
Yeah,
as
it's
part of that,
Been
but
there, it's
but
close to 50 years.
it would seem like to me that that would actually make more sense to keep that facility there with NBAF, with improvements in the edge district. You need that there.
Yeah, we do, and it's, and they agree. I mean, even if it wasn't there, we had that debate early on.
Yeah.
Whether we wanted to, I wasn't really interested in investing a lot of money there.
Right.
If we were gonna move it, and it needs to be somewhere in that vicinity, just from a response to. So,
Good deal.
all right, we'll see you at 4.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
See you.
Okay, Amy. Run a little late.
Oh, sorry.
Amy Mangus, Register of Deeds. And I am here today to ask to fill my vacant position. I had an employee leave the beginning of March for personal reasons. And with our office being such a small staff, it's pretty important to have all 5 of us so that we can have vacation, illness, and stay on top of our daily duties. There won't be any fiscal impact as that's already a budgeted position. And we'd all like you to say yes.
We made any changes to the position?
No,
I don't think so. I can't see the sheet up on it, sorry. Okay. good chance of getting it filled quickly?
I'm not sure. I'm really not. We just haven't had to hire a whole lot in our office, you know, prior to.
Had a lot of turnover.
Prior to 2021, we hadn't hired someone since 2010.
Oh, wow.
So back then, I remember we received, it was 130 some applications in less than a week. Now, when I advertised in April of 21, I think we had about 20 applicants over the course of 3 months, so I'm just not sure. Not sure where we're at here.
Any questions?
Yeah, go ahead and make a motion then to approve the open position of records assistance 1.
Now second.
It's been moved and seconded to open the position of records assistant 1 in the register of deeds office. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, okay, any further business?
I don't have anything.
You know, that meeting this afternoon that we've got. I don't know if you saw on their agenda. They had a copy of the link to the meeting that the city had on it.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna look at it, but then I saw it's an hour and 20 minutes. So I'm like, no, I'm not gonna go over that. I read a few of the things, a few of the notes on it, but I didn't watch their meeting for an hour and 20 minutes.
I think the large portion of that conversation had to do with whether or not that should be in our CPD function or
Well, I know,
not.
yeah, I know, that's what it's about,
So-
but again, I thought, first I thought it would be interesting what to say, like, I'm not gonna sit here for an hour.
What did the law board and the RCPD, were they? make
It didn't come up on Monday.
Didn't come up.
It just didn't come up on Monday. I think we were waiting to hear really what RCPD's analysis
Well,
was.
that's, shit's on that email, I've scanned through those in our breaks
I-
this morning.
Yeah,
think
I got
it's
to that.
Pretty obvious.
I got that late last night. Wasn't surprised by it, but we
Yeah.
really did want to see what the initial fiscal and logistical and personnel impact would be on that, and it's. But
Yeah, I have-
we'll have that conversation later, but
It just came through this
Just
morning.
went through this morning.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see.
it's interesting what items come up that spark the mind sometimes. So be it, I guess. Okay,
Craig will be there.
okay,
He's gonna cover that one.
good deal.
Lacey, do you have any comments?
Nope, other than I just got 2 cats.
Yeah,
I don't have a dog. I just got 2 cats.
Are they dangerous or potentially dangerous? Because you
I
need to
kinda
get them
think so.
licensed.
I think so. Well, or, maybe
I tried
maybe another solution.
I tried to put him on the spot there, it doesn't work.
I always, when we board them, when we go out of town occasionally, I'm always shocked how expensive it is. And
Oh, yeah.
I always get on the wrong side of the staff at the facility because I normally as we're leaving, I say, there's just some $20 in it for you if it's to escape. Oh, God.
It's not good.
Your wife doesn't watch these, I see.
Not these, but she's seen me do it. She just ignores it.
Yeah.
I did not get any. RCPD.
You didn't, you should be
From
from
Clancy.
Clancy.
From plans, it needs to be.
From me.
Oh, there it is. Oh,
Be like there, yeah.
I couldn't send it to you, so I had to send it through channel.
Okay. Or do we have a motion to adjourn?
Go ahead, make a motion. We adjourn the March 23rd meeting of the Riley County Commission.
I'll second.
Yeah, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn the March 23rd meeting of the Board of Riley County Commissioners. All in favor?
Aye.